Hey everybody. So there weren't a ton of games in the NHL last night, but there were some very important games in the NHL last night, especially for bubble playoff teams, teams that are right around that cut line to get in or out of the playoffs. And it was a big night for those teams because all of them won. You look at what went on in the league last night as far as the playoff races. Dallas won 2-0 over Buffalo. Arizona beat St. Louis 3-1. Pittsburgh beat Washington 5-3. Columbus beat Boston 7-4. And Montreal beat the Detroit Red Wings 3-1. So all of these teams that need every point they can get desperately need wins to either stay in the playoff picture or, move into a playoff spot. All got W's last night. So they all won, so that doesn't really shuffle much as far as who's in and who's out standings wise, but every point matters at this point in the season. So all of these teams getting wins, this is big for them. So when we look at the wild card picture and who's outside in the Eastern Conference, we have Carolina with 83 points in the first wild card spot, Columbus in the second wild card spot with 81, and Montreal just outside with 81 points as well. They lose the tiebreaker with Columbus. So obviously things are very tight in the East as far as who gets in and who's out, and really some people still think that Philadelphia is going to get in or has a chance to get in, but I don't. They're at 76 points. I think they're too far back with only 10 or so games remaining. So I think that Montreal is really the only team outside of the playoff picture right now in the East that has a legitimate shot to make it this year. And they're obviously tied with Columbus points-wise. They're just out on a tiebreaker. It's going to be very, very close between, these last few teams in the Eastern Conference between who gets in and who's left out. Now, Pittsburgh, I don't even really want to count them as a bubble team anymore. Pittsburgh's going to make the playoffs. They've been playing much, much better recently. They got a huge win over the Capitals last night, snapped the Capitals' 7-game win streak. On Sunday, they beat Boston and snapped Boston's 19-game point streak. So, Pittsburgh's playing really good hockey right now. They're beating good teams. And there's no reason to think that they're not going to make the playoffs. Their best players are their best players. Malkin and Crosby both had big games last night. Malkin got his 1,000th NHL point. It's just things look good for Pittsburgh right now. I'm not worried about them missing the playoffs. Columbus and Montreal, they are right on that line, so they need every win that they can get. Over in the Western Conference, you have Dallas in the first wild card spot at 77 points. Arizona with 75 points. Arizona moved into a playoff spot last night with that win over St. Louis. So all of a sudden the Coyotes are right there, and they knocked out Minnesota, who did not play last night. And then Colorado is a little bit further behind with 72 points. Their playoff hopes are dwindling, especially with the injury to Gabe Landeskog. He's out for at least the rest of the regular season, and that's probably going to do the Avalanche in. They, like Minnesota, did not play last night, but they're a little bit. It's going to take a lot for Colorado to knock off both Minnesota and Arizona and get into a playoff spot. So it's looking good for Dallas. Another big win, a 2-0 win over Buffalo. Dallas is looking strong, and they're probably going to make it. St. Louis is up in third. There is 79 points. I don't see any reason to think that they're not going to, unless they completely collapse and lose 7 of their remaining games or something like that. I guess they could potentially fall out. They're only to the good by the cut lines at 75. They're only to the good by 4 points right now. So, they're in St. Louis to me is very similar to Pittsburgh in the East. St. Louis is that in the West. They've been a bubble team well, St. Louis was worse than a bubble team. They were straight up out of it for most of the first part of the year, but they've had a huge run in the second half. They've gotten a lot better. They're playing, they're playing decent enough hockey, not like they were, 2 weeks ago when they were on this massive run. But they're playing decent enough hockey. They're right there. I don't see any reason to believe that they're going to drop out completely out of the playoffs, much like I don't think Pittsburgh's going to in the East. So borderline calling them a bubble team, but Dallas certainly is. Arizona, Minnesota, they are right on the line. Colorado, anyone below Colorado, I don't think really has any chance of getting back in. I believe under Colorado is Chicago, and they're at 69 points. So that's 6 points away from the cut line. I don't see you making up 6 points with a few weeks left in the season. That would take Arizona and Minnesota losing a lot of games to make that up. So this is where we're at now. Last night was huge for these teams that played. They all got W's, and W's that they desperately needed, especially Columbus and Montreal, who have not been playing well lately. So for them to pick up W's, maybe boost their confidence a little bit. Those are big wins for them. Another win for Dallas keeps them solidly in that first wild card spot, because they do not want to drop down to the second spot. That's for sure. Because then you're right on the line. So, and then a huge win for Arizona to pull into playoff position, and they haven't been in playoff position really at all, recently in the last couple months of the season. So for them to, they're coming from the bottom and pulling themselves up, and they're doing a great job of it. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Just these races are very, very close. They're going to be very, very tight down till the last couple days of the season. I would not be surprised if one of their races literally goes down to the last day. I could absolutely see that happening, especially with Montreal and Columbus. I could see that coming down to the last day of the NHL season, and it's certainly a possibility. But it's very tight, and it's probably going to be for the rest of the year, which is going to be great for us because we get to watch some really, important hockey games from these teams for really the last 3 weeks of the season. And, big wins for all these teams last night. We'll see what they do the rest of this week and the rest of the season, but it's going to be good because it is coming right down to the wire as far as who's in and who's out. So, with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.